Hey, welcome to Color Up. Today we're going to talk all about dice, right? This is the tool of the trade for craps. Now, craps tables, there's nothing standard about a craps table, but dice are very, very specific. So we're going to talk a little bit about the manufacturing, some of those specifics, and then we're going to kind of measure them out and see how they stack up against each other. All right, so these aren't your ordinary game dice like in Monopoly or something like this. These are precision, perfectly manufactured cubes meant specifically for gaming, right? Gaming is very important. There's a lot of money involved in gaming, and that's why these dice have to be perfect, right? So they are perfectly balanced and perfectly weighted to theoretically give a perfect roll every time. Now, if these dice weren't perfectly weighted, maybe one side was heavier than the other, that would tend to fall to the bottom, right? Maybe not noticeable on a short number, but over a bunch of rolls, it would become noticeable. And that's why they have to be perfect, right? Because the casino want to make sure that no one, there's no dice controllers out there that could beat them. So if there's a die that, the one ends up on top more often than it should, then that's a problem, right? Because then everyone would be betting certain sequences. So they got to make sure that there's no weight distribution problems. That way it will end up very random, right? The goal of a perfect dice is a random dice. Now, essentially these things are plastic, right? So cellulose nitrate was I believe what they used to use. And those broke down over time. So if you see those old, dice from the 40s and 50s or whatever, you'll see they're kind of melted and worn down. I think now they use a cellulose acetone or acetate. I don't know. Another name is like a methylcline. I don't know. Listen, I'm not a scientist. Essentially, they're a type of plastic, and there's very specific types that could be used. Now, in North American casinos, we use two very specific sizes. Sometimes you'll go to a casino and you'll notice that they feel a little different, and that's because there are standards, but there are really only two standard sizes. So and we go by inches. So there's 0.775 inch die and a 0.755 inch, or they usually call that a 3/4 inch die. Now, if you go on to a website like Amazon.com, or you might see different places have them labeled as 19 millimeter. 19 millimeters is very, very close, but that is, not a standard that we use here in America or North America, and so they go by millimeter outside of North America, and that's a kind of a good tell that they're not manufactured here. Now, they're very close, and I'll put the numbers up here. It's like 19.6 something and 19.1 when you compare them to our two standards, but they are different. So as you can see, they come in all kinds of different colors. They basically color the plastic so you can have, probably the most standard is always the red. You'll also notice that it's a transparent, so you could see through it. And what that does is it prevents, in the old days, there would be people that would drill it out, put kind of a weight or some type in it. And that way, again, we'd have the problem of not a random roll because it would be weighted on one side or the other. So if it's transparent, you could see right through it. Now, they do make dice that are opaque, right? You can't see through it, but I rarely have ever seen this used in a casino. Like as a promotional, I think I've seen one from the Win, but typically they're always transparent, just so you can kind of see through it. Now, the tolerance of these guys, like I said, perfect. Nothing in this world is perfect, but the tolerance is 2/10,000ths of an inch is how perfect. So 0.00002, something like that. That's the tolerance of how perfectly sized they have to be, and they have to be made perfect 90-degree angles. And then as far as these little dots on them, these are pips. They're not painted on or anything. So what they are is actually drilled out, again, to a specific tolerance, and I believe that's 4/10,000ths of an inch. And then they fill them with material that is the exact same weight as what they pulled out, or what they drilled out. And so that's how they can. And if you look very close, I'm not sure if one of my cameras will pick this up, but you can see in them that they're actually drilled out, they're a specific depth, and then filled back in. So they're not painted on, they're drilled in. And then they're stamped with usually the casino logo or a specific number or something like that. So I do have a question how the stamping doesn't affect anything. But yeah, that is a tricky question, because I'm going to talk about that in a minute when we talk about casino dice. When they're done using them, right? They have a shelf life. After a while, the edges get torn down, chipped, and that sort of thing. And then a lot of times they'll cancel the dice, which just lets the casino know that, hey, these dice shouldn't be used on a game anymore. And so a lot of times you'll see a little drilling, kind of like a stamp, or sometimes they'll actually drill all the way through the die. And that way they just can quickly look and see, yeah, that one's no good. We're not going to use that on the game. So I think depending on the casino, I've heard different things. They'll replace a set of dice like once a day or every couple days. I don't think anyone's going past a week of using a dice. So I believe it might be a shift. I don't know. I think I've heard different things, but yeah, usually they're not going beyond a day, and they're replacing, getting out the old that get worn on these edges, because they are very sharp edges. They get worn, so then they're going to replace the dice. So we mentioned, and you can see there's different colors: red, green. There's like yellows. There's also, they do different dots. I believe these are called bird's eye dots or pips. Pip is the official name of these little dots, right? So sometimes they'll look a little different pips. And yeah, they're fun to collect. These are kind of different kind of dice. I just have these as part of my collection here. I forget what these are. They're quartz, but dealer John sent me these. They were dug out of a mountain and kind of fashioned dice, but those are cool. Now, before we get to measuring a couple of these, and I have a couple, these aren't super scientific, but they're okay. I mean, they're not like the most expensive in the world, but we have some calipers here, and I've got a scale. We're going to measure some of these dice out and see the differences between 19 millimeter, North American made, the weights, what's used in casino, dice that you find off of Amazon, that sort of thing. So we're going to kind of look at the numbers and see how close they are to each other. But I do want to run down kind of the state of the manufacturing currently. So there's essentially two manufacturers for casino dice, and even that is changing. Initially, back in the days, there were, you may have heard the name Bud Jones, Paulson chips, real famous for that. There's also card manufacturer Gemco. So there were all these independent companies that essentially got bought up by a company called GPI, or Gaming Partnership International. Now they have different manufacturing plants in Mexico and Europe, and they were one of the manufacturers that casinos here in North America, Vegas, Atlantic City, that sort of thing, would buy their dice from. The other one was this little family-owned company in Kansas City called Midwest Gaming. So essentially, they were the only American manufacturer of dice. And actually, that is where, some of us other YouTubers or I purchased my dice from. So these are actual casino grade, just like the casino buys. I was able to buy color up dice, very expensive, but I was purchasing these from Midwest Gaming. Now, some things have changed in the last couple of years. GPI International has since been bought out by Angel, which is a Japanese company. So all the dice and gambling equipment and that sort of thing now is essentially under Angel. Now, that is the one big partner. And then the Midwest, this family-owned company that made dice, the only American manufacturer of dice, is now recently bought out by TCS John Huxley, which I believe is an English company. And then to make things even a little more interesting, from what I understand, TCS Huxley then purchased the North American division of Angel. So it's my understanding, and anyone could correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but now TCS Huxley is the only North American manufacturer of dice. Now, they don't do the manufacturing only in America through the Midwest plant, but I believe they use a plant in England maybe, and then Mexico, but they're the only supplier now. You couldn't buy from GPI anyway unless you were a casino initially. Then they got bought out by Angel, and then Angel sold the North American division to TCS Huxley. So I think I have that straight. But yeah, so TCS Huxley, when they bought out Midwest, before you could essentially, as a consumer, call it Midwest, order a set of dice. If they had dice, they'd sell them to you and that sort of thing. Otherwise, you'd have to place a minimum bulk order, which is essentially what I did. Now, once they went to TCS, they no longer, Huxley, I'm just going to call them Huxley for just simplicity. Once they went to Huxley, they no longer allow sales to individuals. They do allow to prior customers. So I believe, for instance, I have some Craps Nation dice here. They're still purchasing them. I know Heavy Holtum is still purchasing them through Huxley. And I haven't done that. I haven't turned in my paperwork as an LLC to them to kind of get my business approval. And that's the, those kind of steps. And essentially the cost of them for a big minimum order, I usually do like 200, 300 sets of dice, is pretty significant. So I haven't done that, but I believe they will sell to me as a prior customer. But as an individual, you can no longer call up and buy dice from them. Earlier in the video, I mentioned Amazon dice. You'll essentially see that they're labeled 19 millimeter. Typically, all these are coming from Chinese manufacturers. Now, not that there's anything wrong with that. They do service other, casinos outside of North America. But again, as far as North America is concerned, at this point, Huxley is going to be the only supplier for casino dice. So how big is the difference, and does it really matter? Now, the reason I'm kind of bringing this up is because I'm considering finding a manufacturer to create color up dice that, one, will be very close to what we use here in casinos in North America, but also significantly cheaper. If you're going through Huxley now, you're close to $30 for a set of 5 of these. If you use a manufacturer, not that I love that. I'd love to make stuff in America, but it is what it is. You might be able to get them down to like $15. So that is a significant change, and you'll kind of see that in the pricing online. If you're looking at dice and like, why is one 30 and one 15, right? And so that's probably a little indicator of where they were manufactured from. So let me go ahead and organize these dice into different piles. I know some are Amazon dice, some are casino used dice, and some were from Midwest Gaming. So I can kind of organize those, and then we'll get to measuring them. All right, I pulled out some dice here. And what we have here, essentially 3 categories. These are Amazon dice, and I'll actually open up another pair right here. These are, I know, come from Midwest Gaming. These are essentially color up dice. So we got some Craps Nation dice, some Hawaiian Crap Shooter, and I know all those guys have ordered from Midwest, currently Huxley. And then over here we have various casinos, or dice that have been used in casinos. We've got Ellis Island, Caesar's Palace. This is the Colorado one. What is it? Bronco Billy's, I think. We only need one of those. Let's set those aside. We got some Diamond Joe Worth in Fort Worth. We got some Cypress Bayou dice and some local GSR dice from here in Reno. And so we'll kind of measure them out. Now, I believe these are all the same, the larger dice, which I personally buy these. I like the larger dice. So we're looking at the 7.75 inch. So a little bit, they're the larger dice of the 2 standards, right? So that's what all of these are. Now, these ones over here, these Amazon dice, are smaller. And you can actually feel, well, actually, let's see. No, Hawaiian Crap Shooters has the smaller dice. Okay, so he went with the 0.755, I believe is the number. Let's see, Craps Nation, yep. Those are bigger. My dice are bigger. Let's see all the casino ones bigger. And I mean, that's how small the difference is. You can't hardly tell by looking at them, but if you set them down and feel the ridges, you can feel that they are. Okay, so Cypress are the smaller ones. Those are bigger. GSR uses the bigger ones. Caesar Palace uses the bigger ones. So Cypress Bayou Casino, Hawaiian Crap Shooter, both use the smaller standard size. And then the The ones from Amazon are a Chinese manufacturer. Okay, so there's little differences. So these ones right here are the smaller size, and they feel pretty flush. These ones are a little bigger. So these are flush with the larger size. And these, again, are flush with the larger size. So we'll kind of, these are the smaller dice. These are the larger dice. And then let's kind of put these to the test with these calipers and then a scale. Hopefully you can see that. So let's go ahead and set this up for ounce is probably a little small. Maybe we'll do grams. And this one will toggle back and forth between millimeter. Like I said, these are so cheap, you can zero it out, but if you push it a little bit, you know, it's not perfect. So we'll see what it does, but then we can also switch to inch. All right, let's start with the smaller dice first and see the weight difference. So again, Cypress Bayou. These are punched, so that shouldn't affect the weight. It would affect the weight distribution, I guess. Or, I don't know, maybe it's just for looks. I know a lot of people use these to practice with, you know, as a dice controller. Is this good or bad? I don't know. It's no longer perfect, right? Because it does have a punch. But does it really affect it enough for dice control? I don't know. You guys would have to let me know. But let's see. We've got 9 grams. For 2 of them, we're at 18 grams. Let's go with the Hawaiian Craps shooter dice, which, again, I know are from Midwest. We've got 9 grams. Just to test, 2 of them are 18 grams. And then we don't need these. These are Chinese manufactured, so, you know, from Amazon. 9 grams, 18 grams, so all the same. Let's try it in, I'm just curious, in ounces real quick. 0.32 ounce, 0.63, 0.32, 0.63, 0.32, 0.63. So essentially, the Amazon ones came in very good as far as the weight goes, just like the ones manufactured here in America. All right, so let's go ahead and zero this guy out, and we'll see how well it does here. I'm just going to do 1 or 2 side, and again, I got to be careful not to squeeze it too tight. So hopefully my camera's picking this up. So 19.15, let me just try a different side. 19.29, yeah, see, I think the difference is 19.17 are going to be, you know, if I squeeze it, I can get a little different reading. 19.15, is it 0? 19.13, so I think that's reading off, yeah, that was reading off the pip, so that made a big difference. 19.15 is kind of what I'm getting here, so let's check out Hawaiian Crap Shooter, 19.14. Again, you can kind of push it almost, but 19.15, 1.7, I mean, we're talking very close. Let's check out the Chinese. I should start calling them Amazon dice, 19.14. Again, very good. 11, and that might be because I squeezed it. Yeah, I'm not back at 0. So we're dealing pretty close. So that's pretty interesting. As far as the weight and the size, the smaller ones are very close. Now let's go ahead and look at the difference. I'm going to just kind of quickly throw all these up here and see if there's a difference between the casino ones. So let's go 2 casino ones, 0.67. You notice, remember these smaller ones were, oh, I'm getting 0.6 now. 0.63, 0.60. So again, that could just be my scale here, but the larger dice are going to be a little heavier. 0.67, 0.67, 0.67, and I'm on ounces right now. 0.67, so it seems like all the casino dice are the same. Let's check out 0.67, these are, you know, Craps Nation dice. Here's my dice, 0.67. 0.67 for 2 of them. I guess we'll do the last color. Same thing. Now these are Amazon dice. A little light, 0.6. 0.63. So this time they read 0.63. So it's off a little bit, but you know, how different are the Amazon dice from the casino dice? Tens, 100. How much is 4 100ths of an ounce, right? Or is that how that works? I guess we can switch over to grams. 19 grams. Amazon dice, 17 grams. 18 grams, we're real close. So our Midwest dice, 19 grams, just like the casino. So you'll see that the Midwest dice and the casino dice are the same because that's where casinos get them, right? The Amazon ones seem to be off just a little bit, just a little under as far as weight. The smaller dice, they were pretty close. We're up to 18 grams. So maybe a little, just ever so slightly lighter. Again, does that, not up to standards for a casino, but is it up to standards for your table? That's up to you to decide, right? All right, let's go ahead and throw the calipers on these guys. We'll stick with, well, let's go over to inch because they should be inch. So casino one, 0.7745. So we're very close to that 0.775, right? Which are the larger dice. We'll just grab another one here. 0.772. Again, am I zeroed out? Nope. 0.7735. Oh, let me get to 0. 0.775, the time it just read right on that time for the Ellis Island dice. At 0. 0.77, these are the Caesar's Palace dice. 0.772. Bronco Billy dice. 0.772. You know, there's somewhere in there. Let's check the Craps Nation dice. 0.7725, color up. 0.7735, 0.773, 0.7725. Yeah, I mean, they're very close. So zero these out. Now the Amazon dice might be ever so smaller, 0.766. It's the first time we've read in the sixes. 0.695. I got up to 7 there. Let me zero it out. Oh, there, we're kind of reading a little better. 725, 705. Well, these ones a little smaller. Not quite getting there. But again, they'll advertise them as 19 millimeters. So let's jump over to millimeter. 19.45, 19.5. So even they're not as a 19 millimeter, they're off, right? They're 19.5 basically millimeter. So I don't know, again, these aren't the most expensive tools, but you kind of get an idea. Essentially there are 2 standard die, and those ones kind of measured. I don't have a big sample to draw from, but those kind of measured out the same, very close. And then we had the larger standard size. Again, we've got Amazon ones, Huxley dice, and then casino dice, which are going to be from Huxley or previously from GPI and now Angel. So yeah, a lot to know about that. But yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you buy your dice from Amazon, or do you pay almost double and make sure you get the ones that are manufactured in America for North American casinos? I mean, like these ones from Hawaiian Craft Shooter, I think you might still have some in the store. These are the real deal. These are exactly as they're used in the casino. The same with mine, at least in the past. Going forward, I might switch over, but and I would let you know. But these are casino grade, used in casino dice. Now, how much does that tiny bit make a difference? I don't know. That's up to you to decide in your practice and whatever. But I would say the Amazon, these Chinese manufacturer companies, have done a pretty good job, and they're pretty close. But yeah, that is a little bit about dice, tools of the trade, and hopefully you enjoyed that. But if you have anything else to add to this conversation, I'd love to hear from you down in the comments. And yeah, until next time, good luck on coloring out.